More than 33,000 people in the United States die in firearm-related deaths every year. And a Gallup poll taken after the Las Vegas shooting last year showed that 61% of Americans say they'd like to see gun laws strengthened, compared to 11% who prefer fewer restrictions. But it remains a politically divisive issue. In tonight's signature segment, we report from Oregon, a traditionally gun-friendly state where a group of gun owners say they're looking for middle ground. Special Correspondent Joanne Jennings has the story from Clackamas County.
Paul Kemp is one of tens of millions of Americans who own at least one firearm. Growing up in rural Michigan, he learned to shoot at an early age.
Being able to go out hunting with your dad and your uncles, and that was kind of a rite of passage. The opening day deer seasons, there's no school because half the kids don't go anyways.
And it's a tradition he passed on to his children when he moved to Oregon.
We had targets that would run down a cable, different ways to challenge the kids with marksmanship. They were using air rifles and BB guns at real young ages.
Kemp never imagined he'd become an advocate for gun control. Then, on December 11, 2012, came news reports that shocked the Portland area.
Chaos amidst the Christmas shopping rush. Lines of shoppers, even children, could be seen streaming out with their hands up while a shooter was still inside.
A 22-year-old man armed with a semi-automatic rifle fired on holiday shoppers and employees at a mall just down the road from Kemp's home.
There were helicopters and fire trucks and ambulances, and I must have got passed by 100 police cars coming over from work.
Police intervened quickly, but it was too late for Kemp's 45-year-old brother-in-law, Stephen Forsyth. He and 54-year-old Cindy Yulee were shot dead before the gunman took his own life. A few hours earlier, the killer had stolen this AR-15 from a friend who didn't report the theft until after he heard news of the shooting. Gun owners are not required to report lost or stolen weapons in 39 states, including Oregon.
I started researching the gun laws within 24 to 40 hours of when Steve was killed.
Kemp goes to great lengths to secure his own firearms. He was surprised that there's no legal mechanism compelling other gun owners to do the same.
The gun owner saw the gun was missing before he went to work, and he didn't call police and report it. So, yeah, I think as a responsible gun owner, I would have reported the firearm missing.
Those taken at Clackamas Town Center. Stephen Forsyth.
As Kemp mourned his brother-in-law's death, he felt compelled to take action. But as a lifelong gun owner and hunter, he didn't know where to turn.
In Oregon, there are some groups that are on the far right of the issue, and then there are some groups on the far left of the issue. And there was no voice in the middle.
So he helped start a new group, Gun Owners for Responsible Ownership, or GOFRO for short. On this day, they are at a pediatrician's office in Portland demonstrating gun safety locks, using a plastic model of a Glock 9.
This will open, and then you would thread the cable lock through here on this type of gun, and then the gun is positively unloaded.
The training is intended to help doctors and nurses better relate to patients who are gun owners, to explain, for example, why gun locks are so important if a child gets a hold of a firearm.
They don't have enough pull in their index finger to pull the trigger. The only way they can do that, and the reason a lot of them get shot, is they turn the gun around this way and they put both their thumbs on it and they pull the trigger and it's pointed right at them.
Kemp says his organization is focused on promoting gun safety rather than gun control. But not all gun owners believe him. The Oregon Firearms Federation considers itself a stronger defender of gun rights than the National Rifle Association.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Kevin Sterrett is executive director.
So what do we have here?
Well, here we have a shotgun range for trap shooting.
He's based at a gun club, so that's why you'll hear some gunfire during our interview.
I feel great sadness for anyone who's lost a loved one, but nothing they propose would help anybody. And in fact, they are every bit as radical an anti-gun group as any that's ever come down the hot pike.
Sterrett says there's no need to legislate firearm safety because most gun owners are already responsible.
We're at a firing range right now, and soon there'll be 50 people here with guns, and no one ever gets shot. So the access to guns, the availability of guns, obviously is the issue. When we have hunter safety training here, we have 100 kids walking around, 12, 15-year-old kids. Every one of them's walking around with a rifle, and no one gets hurt. No one gets hurt.
Ginny Burdick is majority leader of the Oregon Senate. She's been working on passing gun safety legislation for 20 years. But it hasn't been easy in a state that's been traditionally gun-friendly.
Historically, no one would talk about guns because it would evoke all these strong emotions. And when I started my first Senate campaign, I decided somebody had to talk about it, and that would be me. I went door to door, and I was absolutely stunned by the reaction from gun owners.
What was the reaction?
Their reaction was, yes, it's about time. We need to keep guns away from dangerous people, from felons, and yes, I support you.
Over the years, she's had some successes, like passing a law requiring background checks for private gun sales. But her biggest legislative victory came this summer with the passage of a bill called ERPO.
ERPO is the Extreme Risk Protective Order legislation, and it basically allows people, families or law enforcement who are aware of someone in crisis, at risk of posing imminent danger to themselves or others, to go to a judge and get an order to separate them from their guns.
ERPO, modeled after similar laws in 3 other states, went into effect in Oregon on January 1st. It's intended to reduce suicide. In Oregon, 82% of gun deaths were due to suicide between 2010 and 2015.
The purpose is to intervene very quickly and try to give that person a second chance instead of a funeral.
In a surprise move, Republican Senator Brian Boquist, an Army veteran with high marks from the NRA, co-sponsored the bill. His stepson, also a veteran, used a firearm to kill himself in 2016.
So I'm at a point now where it's time to do something. This particular bill doesn't take away any constitutional rights. This particular bill is very targeted and very precise.
That's a tragic loss, you know. And as I said, you know, when his stepson took his life, we sent a note to his wife. She sent back a very nice thank you note. I've known Brian for many years. But here's the thing. If he knew his stepson was in crisis, he should have done something. If he didn't know his stepson was in crisis, then this bill wouldn't have helped.
The Oregon Firearms Federation opposed the legislation and tried to pass a ballot measure that would overturn it, but they didn't get enough signatures.
They're concerned that, that there's a slippery slope and that you say that you're just passing some gun safety measures, but that your ultimate goal is to severely restrict people's rights to firearms.
Yeah, nothing.
How can you ensure that that's not?
Nothing could be farther from the truth. For one thing, this is a high gun ownership state, and we are a relatively high gun ownership country. So you're not going to get anywhere without the acceptance and endorsement of gun owners. You just are not.
Getting enough gun owners to accept and endorse a law like ERPO was a tall order in Oregon. Whether or not more states will follow remains to be seen.